Hello everybody, my name's Tiara and this is very clearly my video assignment for this class today. And so I'm just going to jump right into it. I've got my laptop here, so I'm just going to kind of be reading from it basically. So my first question is going to be around how you define racism and how the author has defined racism. So I think that racism is discrimination against any minority or racial group, whether that be a comment, a stereotype, and especially physical violence. But then my definition of discrimination is any negative treatment or unfair judgment against others based on their looks, beliefs, and or identities. The authors both had varying views on racism. Tatum suggested that racism is a system of advantages based on race, emphasizing that it is not just about individual prejudice or discrimination, but also about the broader social structures that perpetuate the inequality that exists. But Kendi described racism as a fixed ideology and identity. He thought that it's essential to who a person is, and it's usually thought to be associated with a bad or evil person. And so that's where the idea that people always are saying, I am not racist because I'm not a bad or an evil person. And so those are the things that those two authors kind of say about racism. The second question was, what examples of active and passive racism have you observed or experienced? So I grew up pretty sheltered in a really, really small town, and so unfortunately I did not have a lot of diversity in my community. And so I did not start seeing, any such diversity until I went to college and I got a job in the medical field, where that's where I started being able to see a difference in race and identities and things like that. An example of the passive racism I have heard, though, is I have a friend who is white and her husband is black, and so of course their children are mixed. And I hear a lot of things from her about their just experiences at school in general. Kids are just really vicious to them, and like Tatum noted, none of these kids are actually predisposed to racist ideologies or these ideals, but they're inadvertently learning as they go, which comes from television or their family members or people, close to them, and things that they're hearing from them. And so when these kids are hearing these bad things, from the people around them, or the things that they, see or read, these kids are then going and repeating it with absolutely no true understanding of what they are truly doing or insinuating, which is really harmful, as we know. An example of active anti-racism that I have participated in, like I mentioned, I work in the medical field, and I have to do a lot of trainings around diversity, and my patient population is largely minorities and of other racial groups, and a lot of those have immigrated here. And so I have a lot of firsthand experience with the significant disparities that exist and how the community is treating the people that are coming here, and just their differences. And so I luckily get a lot of training around this topic, as well as just seeing it firsthand. And then the third part was, is there anything, no matter how small, that you are willing to commit to do to end racism that you're not already doing? So my biggest thing is I'm always willing to learn. This isn't necessarily only about racism, but in general, it's about inclusivity, right? And so it's an ever-evolving discussion on race and gender and identity that bring new ideologies or ways of, speaking about it are constantly popping up. And so I'm always willing to learn about these things and, change my verbiage or language around certain things. And examples, is it's no longer, Latinx, versus Hispanic, or African American versus Black. And, in the medical field, it's, guardians versus parents or mom and dad, or breastfeeding versus chest feeding. There's all of these different ways of trying to be inclusive, which definitely breeds into racism. We can't, aim to only try to not be racist. We have to be inclusive with all that we do. And so I think that just being really open in learning and changing verbiage as you go, because it's ever changing, is really important to do. And then my 3 questions, which I'll also post, would revolve around the first one being, how can the pursuit of true inclusivity be seen as potentially harmful, given the vast difference in family and personal dynamics that make it challenging for universal definitions to apply? Question number 2, with so many varying definitions of racism, how can we truly work to be anti-racist when one person believes something different and uses it against you? And my last question, do you think that young children, regardless of race, should be required to learn about racist ideologies? Would this be a way to help fight racism in the future? And that's everything. Thanks so much for hanging out. Bye.